If you've studied World War II beyond surface-level battles and generals, you already know the cold killed almost as effectively as bullets. On the Eastern Front, in the Ardennes, in the mountains of Italy and Norway, frostbite crippled entire units. Men lost toes, feet, and fighting strength without ever seeing the enemy. What most documentaries barely mention, though, is that soldiers quietly developed a simple, brutally effective boot hack that dramatically reduced frostbite. It wasn't high technology. It wasn't issued by quartermasters at first. It was learned the hard way, spread man to man, and later adopted officially because it worked. This trick is still relevant today, not as trivia, but as practical survival knowledge for anyone operating in cold, wet environments. If you care about the lived reality of soldiers and the lessons they left behind, this is one of those forgotten details that really deserves attention. This is where frostbite actually came from, and why standard boots failed so badly. Frostbite in World War II wasn't caused just by low temperatures. It came from moisture, pressure, and restricted blood flow. Early war boots, especially German jack boots and many Allied issue boots, were stiff leather with poor insulation and almost no breathability. Feet sweated during marches, moisture soaked into socks, and then everything froze once movement stopped. Tight boots made it worse by cutting circulation, turning toes into frozen tissue faster than exposed fingers. Commanders blamed discipline. Soldiers blamed luck. In reality, the footwear system itself was flawed for prolonged cold operations. Medical reports from the Eastern Front show frostbite rates dropping sharply when moisture control improved, even without better insulation. That clue led to one of the simplest but most effective adaptations of the war. This is the overlooked boot hack soldiers used to stay warm without better gear. The trick was deceptively simple. Insulating with air, not padding, and keeping moisture away from skin at all costs. Soldiers began wearing oversized boots intentionally, stuffing them with improvised layers that trapped dry air while allowing blood to circulate freely. Newspaper, straw, rags, felt scraps, even dry grass were packed loosely around the foot, never compressed. Some units removed inner soles entirely to create more space. Others wrapped feet in paper before socks to block moisture from sweat reaching the outer layers. What really mattered wasn't warmth in the modern sense, you know. It was dryness and circulation. A dry foot with room to move, well, it stayed warmer than a tightly packed insulated one. Medical officers who at first mocked the practice later endorsed it after seeing frostbite cases decline. So this is how armies quietly made it official once the results became honestly impossible to ignore. By mid-war, both German and Soviet forces were formally issuing felt boot liners, removable inner socks, and oversized winter boots. The Red Army's Valenki, those felt boots, often dismissed as primitive, actually outperformed leather boots in extreme cold precisely because they allowed air circulation and stayed dry when managed correctly. American forces in the Ardennes, well, they learned the lesson painfully during the Battle of the Bulge, when frostbite casualties surged until boot sizing and sock discipline were finally corrected. Field manuals, well, they were updated to stress loose footwear, frequent sock changes, and improvised insulation. None of this was, revolutionary technology. It was applied physiology, learned through suffering. So this is why the method worked according to cold weather science, not just old folklore. You see, heat loss in feet happens mainly through conduction and, well, restricted blood flow. When boots are too tight, blood vessels constrict faster, which in turn accelerates tissue freezing. Moisture, by the way, conducts heat away from the skin far more efficiently than dry air ever could. By creating layers of trapped air and preventing sweat from soaking the insulation, soldiers managed to slow heat loss dramatically. Movement inside the boot also played a crucial role. Toes that could wiggle, well, they stayed alive. Toes that couldn't, unfortunately, died. This is why, even today, heavily insulated modern boots can still fail if worn too tight or paired with the wrong sort of socks. WWII soldiers, you know, learned this lesson long before Gore-Tex was ever invented. So, this is how the same principle can still be applied today in real conditions. If you're hiking, hunting or working outdoors in cold weather, the lesson remains unchanged. Choose boots with extra space, not a snug fit. Use removable liners when possible. Layer socks intelligently, starting with a moisture barrier or thin liner sock, followed by insulating layers that are never compressed. In emergency conditions, dry paper or cloth loosely packed around the foot inside a larger boot can, honestly, buy hours of warmth. If your feet sweat, stop, dry them, and change layers before the cold sets in. Soldiers who ignored this routine lost toes. Those who followed it marched on. Survival instructors still teach this exact principle, often without mentioning its wartime origin. The knowledge didn't disappear. Its history did. This is why this small detail matters when studying war seriously. Wars aren't won only by weapons and tactics. They're won by logistics, physiology and adaptation. Frostbite sidelined more soldiers than many engagements, yet simple field solutions saved countless men quietly, without medals or recognition. Understanding these details brings us closer to the real experience of the people who lived it, not the sanitized version. For historians and survivalists alike, this isn't trivia. It's transferable knowledge, earned under extreme conditions, still valid today. If you found this breakdown useful and want more deeply researched practical history that connects past lessons to modern reality, subscribe to Iron Age Instincts, share this with fellow history enthusiasts, and, keep these stories alive where they belong.